Hi, everyone. This is Caitlin from grassfedgirl.com, and I'm so excited today. We have Elle Russ with us. She is the author of Paleo Thyroid Solution, and she has a new book she's going to tell us about too. Welcome, Elle. I'm so excited to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about your story, how you got interested in thyroid and paleo, and then later we'll talk about your carnivore experiment.
Yeah, so essentially, I was struggling with weight and other issues in my early 30s, and they suddenly seemed to come on, and nothing I did worked. And so I went to a ton of doctors, and no one would help me. And in fact, they hurt me. And I kept going to doctors and wasting money. And at that time, there really weren't podcasts, and there wasn't Paleo Primal, Ancestral Carnivore. There was nothing. So that led me down a road to becoming my own expert, because what happened was, is since all of these doctors left me in the dust, and I'm talking like celebrity doctors, famous hormone doctors in LA, left me in the dust, I had to go ahead and actually do it myself. So that's what I did. I actually had to order my thyroid hormones online and dose myself and use doctors for blood work. And I shouldn't have to, shouldn't have had to do that. And that's because 99.9% of the doctors are uninformed on this topic, and they're steeped in 40-year-old outdated protocols with thyroid treatment, hormone replacement. And so I became an expert because I actually had to fix myself, because I'm in a city of amazing doctors, yet no one could help me, and they hurt me. So that's when I wrote my first book 3 years ago, The Paleo Thyroid Solution. It's still, number one at the top, and it's, helped so many people, which is so great because it makes every day I suffered, which was years, so worth it. So worth it to streamline A to Z, getting better for other patients out there. And the best-selling thyroid books are written by patients, because we know how it feels. And so I want to mention the other two. The only other two books I do recommend on thyroid are one is called Stop the Thyroid Madness. That's written by Janie Bowthorpe, and she has the best thyroid website of the same name. And then the other one is a niche book within thyroid health, and only reserved for people who have to be on the last resort of thyroid hormone replacement, called T3, which is what I take every day. And that book is called Recovering with T3 from Paul Robinson. Both of those patients helped me save my own life at one point. So I always like to point that out, that those are the resources that I trust and that that really helped me. So, going through this whole journey, so here I am. I have a second bout of hypothyroidism, and I fix myself. And my thyroid's great. I feel great. My brain is great. But now I'm fat again because I gained all this weight. And I'm like, oh my God, because that's usually what happens when you have a thyroid problem. And so sometimes not, but more often than not, it's an uncontrollable weight gain thing. So I am like, okay, well, what do I do now? I've got to lose the weight that I gained, with this last bout. And I went back to kind of doing what I had done before, which was like the old paradigm of like chronic cardio. And even though I was eating healthy, I was still not on the right track. And then I met Mark Sisson, the author of The Primal Blueprint, The Keto Reset, and, just amazing. I'm sure everyone knows him on here. He's like the grandfather of paleo in a lot of ways, he and Lauren Cordain. And I started working for Mark about 7 years ago. And I actually, here's the thing that's funny. I knew he was an author. I started working for him, and I knew he wrote this book. But as I'm like flipping through the Primal Blueprint, I had read so many health books, before, and like nothing worked, and they all seemed to say the same. So I kind of discounted his book. Like I was flipping through it, and I was like, whatever, same stuff, like totally discounted it. And then I was working with Mark and his wife, and I thought, these guys are 20 plus years older than me, and they look way better than I do. And they're not stressing out. They're not working out all the time. They're not, maybe I should read his book. Like maybe I should legit like read his book. Right. And so, I totally admit it. So finally I read his book, saw a video interview of him speaking about this topic. And it just hit me from every corner. And then I was like, well, I'm going to do what they're doing. I'm going to do Paleo Primal. And when I did that, so many things changed. Aside from, okay, so, and as you know, with your carnivore community and things like that. So you start to become you start to become sort of like calorically efficient. You become metabolically efficient. And then I became what I call T3 efficient, which means I now subsist off of 20 to 25 micrograms of T3 a day versus 100, because I needed that much then. But over time, as you clean out and you go down this road, I needed less to operate. That just goes to show you the trajectory of how that works over years. And I never felt better in my life. But here's the thing. Forget the weight loss. I was a sugar burning food addict. Okay. And so here's the thing. fit, not whatever. All these years, I was obsessed with food. I was like thinking about food all the time. I'd wake up, I'd think about food. I'd eat, and then I'd think about a food and what I could get away with at the end. I'd park at a grocery. I was like food obsessed, practically eating disorder level. I thought, what's wrong with me? I mean, Caitlin, like I was looking at everyone and I was like, are they suffering inside? Are they thinking about food all the time? Like, is it just me, or are they all hiding it too? Are they struggling like I am? I mean, I literally thought, oh my God, if life is like this, if life is going to be like this is going to suck. I just didn't know that I was a glucose dependent sugar burner. I had no idea. So once I made the transition, and it was like probably, just like Mark Sisson says, he has a book called, the 21-day transformation, right? Where you kind of go paleo, you get fat adapted, which I suggest everyone does before they go carnivore, unless it's like an immediate like medical issue, because it's so much easier to go from paleo, low carb, to then keto, to then carnivore, and I think it's better to set up your body that way along that journey. And we could talk about that in a minute. So here I am, and it's like maybe the third week of doing Paleo Primal, just around that 21-day mark. And I went all day without eating, like I didn't even think about it. And then it was like 5 p.m. and I was somewhere in the middle of Hollywood. I was like going to go to like a Jimmy Kimmel live show taping or something. And I looked at my watch and it was like 5 p.m. And I was like, I haven't even eaten. Like I couldn't even believe that I hadn't thought about food, that I had this endless energy. Clearly I was running off ketones, and I was amazed and I thought, I'm not hungry though. So I was like, okay, well then don't eat. You're not hungry. Don't eat and just wait. I ended up eating like later that night, but that really blew my mind and it hasn't really changed since. And I'll tell you what, that is the consistent success story we get at Mark's Daily Apple, Mark's famous blog. Every Friday, someone might lose 100 pounds or someone might cure a skin disease, and that's lovely. But the thoroughfare of everybody is, and oh my God, I'm not obsessed with food anymore. Oh my God, I don't think about food all the time. I tell you what, it doesn't matter if you're 500 pounds or you're 120. Being food obsessed and addicted in this way is so distracting to life, and it is really tough. It is so awful. Like, I am so grateful that that went away. That was like the most amazing thing that this shift in paradigm does for you when you move to the high fat, moderate protein, low carb, or carnivore or keto, whatever. But this world we're living in, right? And so, and I didn't know grains were bad. And I also subscribed to all that stuff like, oh, well, you need your oatmeal and you need your fiber and all this junk that you clearly know and this carnivore community knows is really not applicable. So I was just amazed. And when I kept going down that road, I made the connection between thyroid and Paleo Primal. And that connection was this. The gimmick is not like, oh, I get it, paleo thyroid solution, you get fat while you're hypothyroid, and then you go paleo and you lose the weight. I mean, that is part of it. But the main part of this is that this kind of paradigm, or carnivore, is literally the ultimate in glucose management and adrenal management. Those things are absolutely critical for thyroid hormone metabolism and output, and also just in general, right? All of our hormones and stress hormones, etc. So here I was on this sugar burning, eat every 2-3 hours zone diet, BS, 3 meals, 5. Oh my God. And I'm so glad that I am not in that world anymore, because it is so nice to not think and be obsessed with food. I mean, honestly, if you're listening and you're feeling this way, I'm telling you, there is an end to this, and it's not just you. So that I made the connection. I pitched it to Mark. He said, you know what? I've been wanting to publish a thyroid book. So he published the Paleo Thyroid Solution, and it's great. And I will probably be working on a second edition of it at some point, because again, this book could be so much more. But you have to stop somewhere at some point. I could have made it like an 800-page book, but at some point I can make it more into an encyclopedia and offer more information, and even maybe some information on carnivore. So that will be the plan down the road, is to do a second edition at some point. So you know what? I saved my own life. And this just goes back to, I'm sure you give this message to your audience, and it's an important one. I don't care if you're going to a Harvard, Yale doctor with 500,000 degrees. If someone has diagnosed with you as something, says, oh, you have a thyroid problem, take a pill, or oh, no, you start to become the expert. You're going to take 5 steps backward. You're probably going to get screwed. And then years go by and you're like, oh my God, I was led astray all this long. And now you've got all this resentment and regret over this doctor and listening and putting your health into their hands. That's what I did for years. Now, granted, to my credit, this information was on the internet at the time, but it is now. It is now. There's so much free stuff out there. The things you're offering people, the things I'm offering people on my podcast, so much free content, articles. There is an endless amount of information out there to get to the right path. So you can't throw money at it. You can't just throw money at it and go to the best gastroenterologist because you've got, stomach issues and you're like, well, I'm a millionaire. I'll just throw a bunch of money to these great doctors. Guess what? It's still not going to work because I've talked with those people that are billionaires and they have thrown millions of dollars at a thing. It wasn't until they learned about it themselves and until they took some intuitive steps themselves and started to go down the path of go, you know what? Maybe I should stop eating sauerkraut. Okay. That's a good one when everyone's telling them to eat sauerkraut and probiotics, So you have to go down this road and it can become kind of intuitive, but it's really, really important.
That's amazing. I think everybody needs to hear that. Yeah, I mean, paleo was the first time that I could actually stop eating snacks and stop counting the hours between meals. And I was actually full for a while. It was amazing. And it did help me so much. But I just kept searching because I have terrible, terrible digestive problems. And that's what led me to carnivore, really, because it was just unbearable. So,
yeah, and let's talk about carnivore for a second. So, I've interviewed Paul Saladino. I'm going to be interviewing all the carnivore people. I've interviewed a couple of others. Kate Kressinger. She's also a health coach. K8 for Wellness is her Instagram handle. And I have a couple of clients. So one has Hashimoto's and actually owns a grass-fed ranch, which is very convenient for her to be a carnivore. And she literally can't eat any kind of plant or fruit material, or that's the end of it. And she's like, okay, this is my life now because I'd rather have this, and thank God I like meat, then go back to the misery that this is. And then I have another client with Crohn's who, again, one piece of lettuce, forget about it. It just is going to ruin her. But she doesn't have any digestive issues when she's carnivore, and she's been carnivore a year. And then Kate's been carnivore for, 200 days now. And I interviewed her as well. She did a couple of experiments where she would have one macadamia nut, immediately had a headache. Do you know what I mean? She tried mushrooms, immediately had welts on her leg. I mean, this is no joke, okay? So anyone who discounts carnivores, and here's the thing, carnivore actually makes the most sense to me from an ancestral perspective. Now, I know we are technically omnivores, but still it makes sense that some people would just need that. And if it's working, why fix it? It's not broken. So as long as you're doing it in the right way and you're getting the proper nutrients and you feel good, awesome. And also it's not for everyone either. And I don't think the Paul Saladinos of the world are trying to tell people that it's for everybody. They're just saying, hey, I found this for my autoimmune condition and maybe it'll help you too. And so it's just miraculous. And these people that I know that are carnivore are in great health and great shape and of great sound, clear mind. How can you deny that?
Yeah, and their skin looks pretty good too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think you did a carnivore experiment. How did that go?
Well, so here's the thing. I wasn't trying to clean up a disease. So granted, I was doing it more for a fun thing, right, to see how it was. If I had a serious health issue, I would have probably gone longer with it. I went about 15 days. Now, here's the thing. The only reason I didn't go longer is honestly, I just got a little bored and I missed the crunch of lettuce. And by the way, I never thought I'd miss lettuce. Okay, that was one thing. I was like, I did not think I was going to miss that. But this is what I will say. I was completely satiated. I probably ate a little bit too much protein at first. I didn't think about food. It was very simple. It was a great reset for me to kind of look at how you're eating and what you're eating and the volume you're eating. In a way, it was sort of this incredible lesson of like, hey, where can you clean up, in your purchasing and in your waste and everything else? So I like that for that. The other thing too is that since I love pate and I love, chicken liver and stuff, but I don't eat it often. But in doing the carnivore experiment, it was actually a great way to be like, yeah, Elle, actually, you do need to have this in your life for every now and then. And I'll tell you this, I had a bunch of grass-fed frozen beef liver chopped up into like cubes that I would just put in the freezer, an individual bag, take it out. So I'd have it. One morning, I ate literally not even 1 ounce probably of grass-fed beef liver. My brain and my body was on fire all day long. I didn't eat for like 10, 12 hours. That was 1 ounce of beef liver. So that was really amazing. I didn't notice any crazy gastrointestinal stuff, but I will say this, I kind of prepared for for about a month before I did it. I'd have like a carnivore day, and then the next day it'd be light vegetable. I kind of cleaned out as much as I could before I decided to go full force. And I think that that was really helpful in terms of mental and also just physical. So, yeah, so it was pretty amazing. But then again, after like 15 days, I got a little bored. And again, here's the thing. Would I be bored if I had a disease that was cured by this thing? I wouldn't care. Because like the thing, like I'm allergic to shellfish now, but I used to eat lobster and shrimp and all that stuff growing up, but I became allergic to it. And then people ask you, they're like, "Oh no, that's such a bummer. I love lobster." And you're like, "Yeah, but once you're allergic to it, like you don't want it. Like I don't crave it anymore." So I get that. I get that if I had a disease and the eczema is showing up and then I go carnivore and it doesn't, it's like you don't even want those things that are creating the problem. So I
Yeah.
can't, I realized that it wouldn't be an issue if I had to live my life that way. But also I was like, well, because I don't have to. But what it did inform me too is I like the idea of doing carnivore like one or two every 10 days. So it's still kind of in there, kind of cycling in and out of it a little bit. And honestly, everyone that I talk to, my friends do a little carnivore experiment, even if it's for a few days, and they're like, you know what, I'm just gonna. They call me and they're like, oh my God, I feel better than I ever have. So I'm certainly a proponent, and I think that it's a really good thing to discover, and I offer it as a solution for people like, hey, first you do this, then you do this, and then if that doesn't work, dive into it. But the people that are just like, I want to do carnivore, you're like, you know what? No, you don't go from a standard American diet to trying carnivore. It's a joke. You're going to have so many problems. You really do need to get metabolically efficient. You need to get fat adapted. You need to get calorically efficient, and you need to get metabolically flexible. And because otherwise your body's like not going to be efficiently using the ketones or all of the other stuff. So again, I think that this is not something anyone should jump into, that it's something that you should slide into, and that's the way to do it. Like, for example, even Paul Saladino did it that way. It's like, okay, he goes paleo, okay, then, AIP, okay, and then you keep going, a little resolve, nope, not totally better, okay, great, but at least your body is completely prepared for that. And I think that that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I coached some people and I think they were going straight from sad, and I was like, I'm scared. I'm scared for you guys because it took me like 10 years to get to it. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't think I think it's too drastic for somebody who's just eating, fish sticks or McDonald's or whatever. Um, so you know a lot about all the thyroid things. So what do you think are some of the problems with vegetables, and what are some of the myths or truths about vegetables that you see from a thyroid perspective?
Well, I was just talking to Paul Saladino about this actually when I interviewed him because so they've always said don't eat like raw cruciferous vegetables, and then they say, okay, if you cook them though, it takes away this element that's sort of like a thyroid effector. Then Paul felt like he felt some found some research that in our gut the enzymes will still make it so in the negative way. So here's the thing: the jury's a little bit out on that. So why don't you just not do it, right? So, if you're trying to heal from a thyroid problem, there are things you should avoid. Raw cruciferous vegetables, so not a ton of coleslaw and cabbage, Brussels sprouts, right? All those things. Even maybe not cooked, just do other veggies. The other thing is like things like chlorine. I was swimming every day in a pool. That's very antagonistic to thyroid. Now I'm still a swimmer, but I do it maybe once every 10 days. And again, chlorine is very antagonistic. Smoking. I used to be a cigarette smoker. Smoking can do. So there's lots of things. Heavy metals, silver fillings in your mouth. I had a lifetime of sushi and tuna, and I had high mercury that I had to detox from. So there's lots of things that can ignite a thyroid problem. But I'll tell you what doesn't: low carb, keto, and carnivore. It just does not. The only way it could is if you were eating so few calories that your body is getting a starvation signal, and that it's down regulating and slowing down the thyroid. Because in that environment, your body's trying to save itself, and it's like, hey, this chick's starving, so we're not going to give her any more of this fat burning metabolic T3 because we need to wait till she's out of the woods. So that's kind of the primal perspective of your body. And that happens too with people on low carb and keto. So, they get so excited about the whatchamacallit. They get so excited about the satiation, like this newfound, like, oh my God, I'm running for hours like on nothing, and I feel great, and I don't care about food. And then what happens is they really look at their overall calorie intake and what they're doing. It's like pretty low, and that's when the thyroid stops to drop. So you still need to make sure you're in line with this somehow. And overall, again, people just can get carried away with it at first because it is so great to have your appetite satiated after you've been kind of addicted. At the end of the day, you kind of still have to watch. Your body is going to still react when you put barely anything in it. But again, if you're doing carnivore and it's all nutrient dense and you're getting all these nutrients, you're likely not going to run into that problem. So they don't cause thyroid problems. That is for sure. However, they actually can optimize them in a lot of ways, depending. And if you are coming from a type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance kind of platform, then going any type of low carb, paleo, keto, or carnivore will absolutely help that, because they go hand in hand. So people get type 2 diabetes and they eat themselves there, unbeknownst to them, but they do it anyway. I was pre-diabetic, so we're all have the issue. And then you go down that road, and then the only thing that's actually going to dial it back is going low carb, as we know, unless you want to go on insulin, which really you shouldn't. And so at that point, you have to look at like, okay, well, hold on a minute. You know what I mean? So in a way, if you get to type 2 diabetes, you might get a thyroid problem, because that in and of itself can affect thyroid. So therefore the thyroid would be helped in that particular scenario for sure. Not always though. It's not always the case that you get, and say you just got fat from being hypothyroid. Keto, low carb, or carnivore isn't necessarily going to be a solver for that. You could try. Look, it's worth a try. That's my book, The Paleo Thyroid Solution, has a million options. It's like, hey, natural protocol. Let's try to clean this up first. Clean out your diet, get the nutrients, blah, blah. That didn't work? Okay. You want to go to thyroid hormone replacements? Here's how you do it. You still have to have this underlying primordial baseline. You still have to have the proper nutrition. So you're going to be doing that anyway as you do the natural protocol. And if it doesn't work, which sometimes it does, but if it doesn't, then at least you've primed your body to properly receive the hormones that you're going to have to take. So it doesn't always work. I've tried to get off thyroid hormones several times throughout the years. It hasn't worked. Will I try again? Maybe, but I'll tell you what, here's the thing though. Every time you try though, you do have to gauge your life, because you may have lapses in thinking, you might get fat. So again, if I'm planning on going to a major big event, not the time to try to I have to go speak somewhere and have my brain together. I'm not going to try to quit thyroid hormone. So every time I've tried, it hasn't worked. Will I try again? Maybe. I don't know. So again, and you can try, and people have been on thyroid hormone and have gotten off of it after years. So it's not a total one-way ticket, but it is something that it can take 3 months to recalibrate a thyroid. And there are people who sometimes need to be temporarily on it to get themselves unhypothyroid so that they can clean up and detox and do all of this, and then they're in a good place, and then they go, okay, let me wean off and see, will my thyroid come back? And sometimes it does. So there's always that option. I don't want people to think that going on thyroid hormone is necessarily a life sentence.
Oh, they do. They do. And they deprive themselves of it. They think it's a weakness. And that bothers me. Mm-hmm. But especially in carnivore, I feel like it's more prevalent than I've seen in any other genre, that they think that you have to heal immediately and go off your thyroid hormone. They think if you didn't do that, then carnivore is not working. And
none of it might work though, right? None of it might work. And that's okay. So take the thyroid hormone, right? You got to take it to live. If I didn't take thyroid hormone, I'd probably be dead by now. So, and that would be a shame because I'm young. So, you know what I mean?
Same here. I mean, I've tried to go off of it, and by about 6 weeks, I'm like the Walking Dead. So it doesn't work for me, and I don't want to feel that way. So why would I do that? Mm-hmm. So what do you think the future will be with? Do you think you'll try carnivore again, or you think you're just over it?
I think I might do another reset experiment on it, where I do another, see if I can go a full month or something like that. But here's the thing. I feel great. I have no issues. So I don't know. And on the 15 days I felt great. I don't know that I have a personal need to go further, because I'm not here to say that I think carnivore is the only one way a human can live. Listen, they're like, I have friends and people that are vegan or vegetarians or pescatarians or whatever. They're doing great. All their blood markers look great. They feel great. Okay, if you're doing great, great. If you're not, then you've got to keep searching. What I've really found, which is more important, is things like I discovered that I kind of had like a histamine intolerance and I was eating a lot of foods high in histamines. And so that was something where I was like, okay, I've got to clean that up. However, I do think like a carnivore month would be just a great reset. Instead of like doing a juice fast or a fast or a detox, like I think carnivore would be actually the ultimate way to do that. And I might do that again with a friend of mine. We both did it together and then we both kind of caved after 15 days. But now that I know what to expect and I'd be in it, I think, I might do it as an experiment, but I was just open for the start. I mean, people were like, oh, you've got to go past 30 days. But here's the thing, I'm not trying to heal anything particularly at this moment and feel good. So I don't know, I'd rather have some crunch. That's all. Not that you can't have that with cooking chicken skins and doing other stuff with carnivore and cooking, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
Have you been hearing about the oxalate issue, and what do you think? Do you have any opinions about that?
I think it's just really individual. You know what I mean? And that's the thing is people go down this road, right? They go to the oxalates issue, and then they go to the histamines, FODMAP, whatever. You do all the stuff, and if it's still not getting better, again, your last resort is carnivore. That's kind of the last resort of any diet paradigm that I would suggest. I would not swing the other way and go vegan or fruitarian or any of that stuff. I would swing the other way and go, and I suggest it to people all the time because it's like, look, if you can't solve this, here's one thing that we know people are solving it with. Try it. But be judicious about it, be smart about it, and get there in the right way. Because I think otherwise you're not going to be able to stick with it, or it would seem so harsh and painful to go from like eating oatmeal and cereal and breads and then immediately going carnivore. Like, I mean, look, it was tough to just go paleo primal low carb from being a sugar burner. I had moments during the first 3 weeks where I was like, I can't think. I don't know what to do. What do I eat? I was eating too much protein. I was eating too much nuts. I didn't know what I was doing, and so it was confusing at first until I talked to Mark and said, hey, I'm having some issues, and he kind of gave me some pointers. So I feel like that was really tough in and of itself. I can't imagine going from a sad diet right into carnivore. But again, for the people, especially that have got like traumatic brain injuries or epilepsy or things like this where they need to go, well, that would necessarily wouldn't be carnivore, it'd be like super keto. Listen, this has saved people's lives. I know a family where their daughter had to go keto at age 1 because of the seizures, but now she has 0 seizures and she's 6, but she had like 40 a day. What do you want? Your brain continually being damaged or go keto? So, this saves people's lives, epileptics, cancer patients, traumatic brain injury survivors. So there's more evidence than not towards keto carnivore than there is towards kind of the other.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the mistakes people fall into when they first get diagnosed with thyroid problems, like when they first go to their doctor, and help give some tips for people who are maybe new with Hashimoto's?
You're asking about symptoms or?
Like the pitfalls they commonly run into either at their doctor or misconceptions.
Okay, well, there's so many misconceptions. There's mistakes that doctors and patients both make. First of all, people are taking the wrong tests. If you want to know the right test to get, you don't even have to buy my book because I gave it to you away for free. You can go to elleruss.com, click free thyroid guide, download it, all the tests to take, how to call a doctor's office to see, do they know what they're talking about, when to get tested, what to take or not to take before the test. Those are the tests. That needs to start off the bat because people are told they do or do not have a thyroid problem by taking the wrong tests. End of story. I have heard this. This is what I hear. This is what kills me because I'm right. And this is why I don't like being right about this every time. Every time someone says, well, it's not my thyroid because my doctor tested it and said it was fine. I'm like, bullshit. And you know what? Usually I'm right for a reason because I see it all the time. They don't know how to test it. And by the way, how do you know they tested your thyroid properly? This goes back to finding out what the proper tests are. So I had a doctor discount my thyroid for years. He's like, it's definitely not your thyroid. Just keep eating less and working out more. I was like, brother, I'm working out all the time. Like something's wrong. My hair's falling out. I got acne. I was a mess. There's 47 or something symptoms in my book. I had like 30 of them. It's a horrific, debilitated state of mind and body. I was completely riddled with the worst symptoms, could barely leave the house. It was an absolute disaster. It took me 3 hours to even get out of bed and like even wake up to do anything. So that's a mistake. You're not getting the right tests. And then you discount it, and then you go down this road of trying to patchwork. Here's the thing. If you're hypothyroid and you don't know it or you're not treated, then what happens is you're going to get a disease or a health issue you otherwise would not have gotten. And so then you're going to get this, then you're going to get that. What the doctors are going to do is going to do the patchwork. And they're going to go, okay, we'll patch that symptom, we'll patch that symptom. And they're never getting to the root of the problem. The root is usually a thyroid. So here's the thing. Oh, you're depressed? Here's Prozac. Nope, because it'll work for 3 months and then it won't work. You should have tested the thyroid. We've got more thyroid hormone receptors in our brain than anywhere else. There should not be one psychiatrist in this world that doesn't rule out thyroid before giving a patient medication. You go to the doctor. Oh, you've got high blood pressure. Here's a pill. No, you don't. No, you don't. You check the thyroid. High blood pressure is usually insulin resistance, is what it is. And that goes hand in hand with thyroid because you have no metabolism. So often people with hypothyroid get high HbA1cs and get insulin resistant. The other one is, blood sugar, right? Like, oh, you have, diabetes, or, oh, you have a bad lipid panel. Well, and we all know in your community knows that the reading the lipid panel is wrong anyway, and half of it is like, screw it. But let's say a doctor's like, oh my God, we're worried about your cholesterol. You need to cut down the fat. No, just fix the thyroid. Because again, the thyroid's the master gland. If you don't fix it yourself or you don't take hormones to replace the ones you don't have, you're not going to have a proper metabolism. So if you're not burning fat like a normal person, then something is off. You either are on the wrong dosage and levels of hormones or on the wrong kind, or there's something affecting that hormone you're taking getting to where it needs to go. These are all discoverable. The other thing that doctors and patients, a big mistake that they make, both of them, is this. You go into a doctor, okay, let's say you need thyroid hormone replacement. Let's assume they give you the correct one, which, okay, that's a lot, but let's just assume they give you the correct one. So they give it to you and they're like, great, come back in a few months, or come back in 6 months, or even 8 weeks or 6 weeks. No. When you start thyroid hormone, and for people out there that don't know this, you don't give the patient their optimal perfect dose all off the bat. You find out where it is by starting slow, you up the game. You need to get tested every 3 freaking damn weeks, end of story. That's enough time to see what that first dose did. Great, how am I doing? Test vitals, test labs, symptoms, everything, look at stuff, go, okay, need a little bit more. Boom. Another 3 weeks, you get tested. It might take you about 3 rounds of those. Sometimes people hit it out of the park and they only have to do 2 blood tests. They're like, I guess I only need these. Great. But some people have to go all the way up to a higher dose. It's individual for each person, and you don't know that till you get there. So that's the mistake patients make, because when you introduce exogenous hormones into the body, it starts to shut down the feedback loop. So by 6 weeks, some people are like, I feel even worse. I feel even more hypothyroid than I did before. It's not working. I give up. Nope. You just didn't do it right. You made the mistake, and so did your doctor, of waiting too long in between dose increases. So you have to force your doctor. You have to demand this. You have to say, because here's the thing. You get the blood tested on week 3. It takes 5 days to get back. Now you're talking to them. Now we're at week 4. Time's a ticking. How quickly do you want to get better? If you're going to go down the thyroid hormone replacement, you have to get optimized in a timely manner. This is a mistake doctors and patients make to this day. So, I mean, I've talked with people that are like, oh, they put me on, like an entry-level dose of thyroid hormone. They're like, oh, they put me on this and it's been a year and I feel worse. And I'm like, what? You haven't been back in a year? Like, nobody. Okay, so that's a huge mistake. And again, this is all in my book. And there's a million interviews of me talking about this. There's a lot of free information out there to find out what's going on. But that is a big mistake. The other thing, too, is that people are on thyroid hormones and then they go to their doctor and they're still complaining of stuff. And their doctor's like, well, it's not your thyroid's fine. And they think, well, I'm on thyroid hormone. It must be. The doctor must know what they're talking about. No, again, 99% of the time, man, 99% of the time, the case is that they actually aren't still testing the patient right, even though they've put the patient on thyroid hormones, which is a very uninformed asshole doctor, but they do it all the time. And so then the patient is like completely undertreated or mistreated in some way, and they think, well, I'm crazy. It's not my thyroid, so it must be something else. And then they go down this rabbit hole of trying to find what, quote, else it could be, and it's not anything else. So you have to, the goal is, if you're going to do thyroid hormone replacement, the goal is to get optimized as swiftly as possible. Now, it varies with medications. There are there are really only three kinds of thyroid hormones. There's T4 only, T4 T3 combo, and T3 direct. Now, there's natural desiccated T3 T4 combo. There's compounded T3 T4 combo. It sounds very confusing. It's all in my book, and I can get into that if you want. But at the end of the day, those are the three choices. For each of those choices, things are different. So for the first choice, T4, which is not optimal in general and often fails people, that's called Synthroid or levothyroxine. And so what happens is that still would need to be tested every 3 weeks. With T3 only, what I'm on, you can increase even sooner, like every 3 to 5, 10 days. But it's something that kind of has to be done at home. You can't see your doctor every 5 days. Dosing T3 only, and this is where Paul Robinson's book, Recovering with T3, comes in, but dosing with T3 only is extremely complicated, and you as a patient need to know a lot about it because most doctors don't. And if they're even willing, which most of them aren't, to use T3 only because they're so ignorant and afraid of it, if you get a doctor that knows what they're doing, then you kind of need to work with it because you're going to have to make dose increases and things at home, and it takes more doses. So people on T3 only have to dose sometimes 3 to 5 times a day. I dose 3 times a day. If you're on Synthroid, you dose once a day. If you're on natural desiccated thyroid or compounded T4 T3, you usually dose once to twice a day. So T3 only is the exception where you might need to do more increases and where blood testing between those increases is not applicable. Meaning you follow signs, you follow symptoms, you follow vitals, and then you may get tested still every 3 weeks. But again, you can make some of these changes at home. And that's just because the nature of it. It's very different. And I explain all of this in my book as well.
That's amazing. I mean, everybody needs that book I gave it to one of my friends who was having mystery, thyroid, and I think it really helped her. So, tell us about your new project, your new book.
Yeah, my new book. I'm going to say it. Sorry for swearing. Confident as fuck. This is really fun for me. I've been wanting to talk about this for a long time because and anyone listening to me be like, okay, she's a confident alpha chick. And I am. And people my whole life would come to me for like needing confidence. They're like, how do I stand up to this person? Or how do I go declare a raise to my boss? Or, and over time I started to notice that these people were coming to me for this skill. However, that seems a very very elitist, like I'm some teacher on the top of a hill. And what I learned was that we have pitfalls as confident people, and we have a lot to learn from people who are less confident. They're more diplomatic. They're better at receiving. They're better at other people taking control. They are more vulnerable. And so, it's a nice symbiotic relationship. But this book is for confident people who feel like, well, I don't need that book. I'm already confident. And I would say, second, check yourself because you will probably need to refine some of your stuff and think about some things. And then also, if you are really lacking confidence or you feel like, well, I have some self-esteem, I'm confident here, but not here. The reason I wrote the book Confident as Fuck is that it's all encompassing, inside and outside. I was confident on the outside, but I had these little areas where I was shuffling some stuff under the rug, and it led me to be not confident in certain areas. If you think one area of your life is just, you're able to shuffle it over here and it's not going to seep into the rest, it's a fool's game. You're wrong, and you'll get your ass handed to you like I did. So this is my journey with becoming confident as F by going through this. And so what it's about, so here's the thing, it's unlike any confidence book, just like my thyroid book's not like any other thyroid book. I don't like self-help books and self-esteem books or, any of this kind of stuff that just gives me acronyms and like to-do lists. It's like, tell me some real life stories. Tell me some applicable real life situations where I can like put my head around an actual situation. And that's what I do. The book is entirely like little true stories of people I've coached or people that I know or have run into in life. And you'll see as you're reading it, you go, okay, I got to scrape that barnacle off my boat. Like I definitely have to just, get rid of that. And that's what it's about. It's getting rid of downers, toxic people, stop being a victim, stop enabling victims and getting rid of shame and a lot of things that are affecting your overall confidence. And so here's the thing. This is what confidence is. It's not about becoming a performer like me or being able to speak in front of 50,000 people, but it's also not speaking in front of 50,000 people and getting off the stage and not being able to speak up in your own relationships or, that's not confidence either. Some of the weakest, most insecure people are some of the most outwardly confident. So this is about both. I would argue that having both is great, but you don't need to be the extrovert, loud person in the room. most of the people that are the quietest people in the room are the most confident. The guy that's the loudest one in the room, usually the most insecure, the guy at the party. So it's not about bragging either. So a lot of people who were taught to like not brag or speak highly of themselves might think, well, I need to be humble, and they might feel weird when you say confidence because they feel like, well, I'm not this outward. That's not what it's about. It's about inside and outside. It's about being able to walk in anywhere in your life, a restaurant by yourself, a party, I don't care where you go, an airport, feeling comfortable and confident in who you are without giving a shit about whether people like you, approve of you, all of these things. And I'm telling you, it's such a better life. It's a better life. People trust confident people. They're the most authentic. And also as well, they're the most hireable. I used to hire people for a living back in the day. I would rather hire a confident person than someone who had the skill in the thing. Because a confident person is proactive. They're going to learn the thing they don't know, and we know they're going to step up. We'd rather have confident people who have self-esteem. You get that vibe? I'd rather hire that person than the person who doesn't have it and I sense it, but has the technical or the actual ability and the skill. So this is really important for life. And you need confidence from the bedroom to the boardroom. You have to learn to speak up. You're not going to get what you want. I don't care what you're into. You're not going to get it unless you speak up and get out there, right? And so this is really, everyone needs more of it. Everyone needs to refine it. And if you don't have it, you can cultivate it. I know someone who did a complete 180, debilitatingly shy, couldn't even talk to people at the Starbucks, like not even a barista at the Starbucks, just couldn't talk to people for years. So debilitating, they finally did the right thing. They hired a social coach who brought them out to malls and would actually help them go initiate conversations with employees working at the stores. Of course, the employees are going to be receptive. They're going to be nice, right? They're not, customers always right. Even if you're at ground zero, with confidence, you can do this, because if you met this person today, it would blow your mind that they were ever shy, that they ever had to be coached. Now, do they have occasional moments? Usually it's when they're talking, they're a guy. Usually it's when they're talking to a woman, they'll have a moment, they get shy. Okay, but they move through it with the coaching they receive. They're able to move through it. It's just momentary versus debilitating. And so this is important. Now, I also know someone I overheard last year at Paleo FX. There's a woman who has a PhD. Very smart, really knows her stuff. And I overheard her talking to another woman, and she said this. She goes, the thing is like, I really know my stuff. I'm just not confident. Well, guess what? I don't care if you are the best painter that ever lived. No one's going to come to your door and ask to buy a damn canvas. You have to be able to get yourself out. So you need confidence to be able to tell a story that could help people, to share perhaps knowledge that you have, right? So everybody, and also you need it. I don't care if you're a stay-at-home mom. You're still going to need it. You're going to need to talk up to Billy's mom. You're going to have some issue at the PTA. So there's going to be something where you need to speak up and have confidence and communicate. So are you going to let others dominate and bully you? No. And by the way, bullies will prey on that. So they prey on this sense of lack of confidence. It's why I rarely ever get bullied. I think in the past 5 years, maybe 3 people, and they're always like random strangers at my gym. It's always some mean girl who tries to pull something on me out of nowhere. And she instantly like regrets the hell out of it because she chose the wrong person to try to bully. But here's the thing. They will prey on you. They will prey on you. So this is about cleaning up parental garbage from the past, what stories were put on you as a kid that are affecting your life now. How do you know? Well, what keeps happening in your life that comes up as a theme that you don't like? Do you keep getting sick? Do you keep getting fired? Do you keep attracting the same dumb chick you're always dating, or whatever it is? What's going on? There's something to clean up here. So this, I call it a self-help book, but when people have read it, their response is like, this is like a life book. And so I think everyone will benefit it. And I'll leave this chapter for everybody, but I have a permanent hand disability. I was disabled at the age of 22 completely. I still have it. That's why thank God I'm able to use my voice. Now, I wasn't even able to talk with my hands when I was 22 years old. I couldn't even lift a fork to my mouth. I was extremely screwed. I'm 40% disabled by the state of California. This is something I only recently admitted in the past couple of years because I carried such great shame about it for 20 something years that I finally really got over myself. And so shame will disable your confidence, and I don't care what it's about. And that's probably one of the most impactful chapters of the book called Shame Disables Confidence. And last year at Paleo FX, I did a speech called The Shame of Disability and the Disability of Shame, because the shame was more disabling than the damn disability itself. I don't want people to cry for me. I can go play a game of ping pong with you. I swim, I work out, I stand up paddle. I just can't use these tiny muscles for typing 8+ hours a day. I can't work at a Starbucks. I can't be a cashier. I can't be a waitress. This is a hand-based world. If you are in a wheelchair and you have the use of your hands, you have 1,000-fold opportunities for jobs than I do. In fact, if you're watching this right now, you probably adjusted your hands 100 times. Maybe you tap on your car to music in your car. I can't sleep on my sides. I'm not complaining. I live a pain-free life. I'm 95% pain-free, like most of the time. But the moment I get back into repetitive issues with my fingers and hands, I get it back. So this is something that really affected my confidence. So I'm confident in every area of my life, but the way that debilitated me was I was so embarrassed and ashamed of it. I'm afraid I'd get rejected. So I just didn't tell new friends, and I didn't tell romantic partners. And this really threw a wrench into my life. And so that's what that chapter is about. So, I don't care if it's that you have a mole on your back that you're embarrassed of, or if you were a drug addict at one point and you're embarrassed about behavior. I don't care what the shame is about. You have to get right with it. And I don't care if it's a therapist or a coach. It doesn't mean you need to do a Facebook Live or write a chapter, but you got to get good with it to the point where you have no shame about your shame, whether it's expressed or you carry it to the grave. Hey, some things might be better left carried to the grave. That's okay. I'm not saying you have to go talk about it, but you have to get right with this. You have to get right with this. And so especially if you have something debilitating like I do that you can't see, because when you have something you can't see, people don't understand it. They keep questioning you. You learn to just go, I'm not going to talk about it because they can't see it. It's just no point. I don't want to keep people asking me the question. It's actually like, not to bring this up as a political topic, but one of my best friends at the age of 42 transitioned from a female to a male. This was very shocking. Not too shocking, actually, but still shocking. And he was expressing that it's like sometimes you just don't want to talk. Like every trans person who's met by a person who's not met one, then they get all these questions and they're like, I don't want to talk about trans stuff all the time. I don't want to talk about what it's like, or I don't want to talk about, do you know what I'm saying? And I get that. And so when you have an issue like rheumatoid arthritis or thyroid or whatever it is, and you're struggling with it, you kind of learn that you're like, I'm tired of talking about it. It's negative. It brings on a complaint. People are like, what about that? Or have you had tried that? Or what? And you just kind of at some point go, I give up. I'm just going to shut up. But that can really be pushing down this kind of shame in a way. You know what I mean? So that's really important to deal with in life, or it will bite you in the butt. And don't take 20 years to do it like I did. Don't take 20 years, I ran into a girl who was 26, and after my talk about the disability at Paleo FX last year, she came up crying and she said, I'm 26, but I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis when I was 19, and all my friends are having fun, and they're out there partying, and like they don't understand it and they can't see it and no one gets it, and I'm the party pooper. And she said, I kind of thought that I had done a lot of work on the embarrassment and the shame that I feel about this. She said, but I didn't even know who you were. I didn't even know what the speech was about. I just saw that there was a speech starting and I figured I'd sit down and listen. And she said, and I was blown away and that's why she was crying. She said, I realize I've got more work to do here. So get after it. Do the work. Don't wait. I wish woulda, coulda, shouldas, but I tell you what, Caitlin, I wish I would have gotten to that decades ago. Yeah.
Well, there's such a crossover, I think. I mean, I'm sure you've seen this with your clients and with thyroid problems and emotional baggage. And so I'm sure that it's a really good addition to your other book. Show it to us one more time.
It's called Confident as Fuck, forward written by Mark Sisson, but it's on Amazon in print and Kindle. And then you can also go to my website, elleruss.com. So is Paleo Thyroid Solution is available more places like Barnes & Noble and elsewhere, but everything is on Amazon. And yeah, I mean, they're both probably worthwhile, but for someone that doesn't have a thyroid problem, I think Confident as Fuck is it's a fun read. It's good. It's really no BS. I had someone who bought it for like every member of their family. And here's the thing, because if you're not going to tell your negative friend or that person, I'll tell them. I tell them in this book. You just get them the book.
Well, it sounds amazing. That's a really cool project. I'm very excited to read it. And I know those two can change your whole life. You just get those two and you're all fixed up.
There you go.
So, well, thanks so much for joining us, Elle. It's been really fun. And everyone, please like this video, please subscribe and share with a friend. That's how we get the word out about how we can take control of our health. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.